Seppa has managed to close in tighter on Andy T by claiming his first win of the season. The drivers now turn their attention to Coda and must prove they have the stuff to be fast at this incredibly technical circuit. Will a modern track catch out these retro drivers? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Ossian Puhaka. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Circuit of the Americas has been the home for Formula One in the U.S. for 8 years now. While they may not have been able to compete here this year, let's head to our track guide to see what drew the highest level of motorsports to this side of the pond. Welcome to Circuit of the Americas. The cliche of everything's bigger in Texas rings true for this track in the Lone Star State. Built specifically for Formula One, the number of corners, circuit length, safety features, and general track amenities immediately set this place apart from almost every racing course in the United States. Of the 3 layouts available, the most widely used is the Grand Prix circuit, which tops out at a whopping 20 turns along nearly 3.5 miles. Many of them have been modeled after well-known sections of European tracks such as Silverstone, Hockenheim, and Istanbul. But compared to those venues, this place still has lots of unique challenges. Turn 1 in particular features the largest elevation change from the lap and culminates in a blind and sharp hairpin. The penultimate corner is just as tough, with its off-camber apex and sudden drop forcing many to escape to the paved runoff on the outside. And though it was meant to lure F1, many other series have now raced here, ranging from IndyCar to WEC, IMSA, and even V8 supercars. Track days are also common, with the SCCA running all types of amateur events to allow up-and-coming drivers to feel what it's like to battle on the same tarmac as Vettel and Hamilton have. With this track, American race fans finally get to experience a purpose-built course made in the modern day. Texas went bigger and better, and in the process, raised the bar for their peers. Well, this is a track that has divided opinions, but regardless, it seems to have stuck when it comes to getting Formula One back here, Ozzy. But we're stepping back in time a little bit instead to run this combination.
Yes, we have, and it's not one of my favorites, I'll be honest with you. I usually like Lotus 39 on any track, but driving it here, it kind of takes some of the character of the car away when you have all that space around you, all those tarmac runoffs, and the modern circuit design with the negative cambered corners and all of that. So, not one of my favorite combination. I'm sure it won't be popular among the traditionalists, but some people may enjoy it.
There's a few sections that'll certainly challenge this car. The S's come to mind with the downforce this thing can produce. But let's take a look at the championship, starting with the driver's standings. There you can see Severi now within 9 points of Andy T. And then you've got Rinna, who sadly we don't expect to be here today because he has other obligations, has fallen down to third. Don't forget about Millward. He's been hot and cold, I guess you could say, this season. And then A2 rounding out our top fives in a very tight fight with him for that 4th spot. We'll see if Alex can move up any higher. What about the Classic Teams Championship here in this series?
Well, Joe, that is sadly gonna shatter the illusion of realism in sim racing because Ferrari is actually leading the team championship with Seppa Vainiokangas and Rotkrans 223 points. Renault in second place, Vaskilampi T. Basilias, and John Player Team Lotus rounding out the top 3 with Simon Partanen and Thiolis. We also got Alfa Romeo and Arrow's Better Racing Team in that top 5. So it's still looking quite competitive, even if Ferrari and Renault are right now running a little bit away from the rest of the field.
Ferrari fans all silently have a tear fall down their cheek. So
They're used to
let's
it.
take let's take a look at our race details for today. 28 laps that they'll be running around here. It takes a bit to get around this course. It's open setup in this series, so drivers will be swapping a few notes, but I'm sure there's some that'll hold things close to their chest. They have an incident limit. This is a track where they do have to worry about that. 17 incidents will get you a drive-through penalty, and 25 will actually cause a disqualification. Now, granted, you have to do quite a few off tracks to get over 28 laps to get that disqualification. Hopefully, we don't see anybody fall victim to that. However, before we get to the qualifying that's just taking place now, you can advertise with us here on the channel. GSRC offers a wealth of options to help you get your branding seen on a platform with over 1 million monthly impressions. If your organization is looking for a global audience to advertise with, look no further than GSRC. Follow the link in the description below to find out how to get your brand on GSRC. We're waiting for the first time. That's how long it takes to get around this track. Still haven't seen one on the board as we're watching Steve Bycroft currently, who's coming through the S's. This is a section I not just worry about because of track limits, Ozzy, but they've got those apex curbs. And considering the importance of the underside of this car, I suspect hitting those is a huge no-no.
Yeah, you don't want to hit anything too high with this thing. Anything that comes off the ground, racing surface, you don't want to hit it. Like a low curb, yeah, you might want to consider it on the track side, but hitting those high curbs, that's not something you want to do. And I'm sure Steve Bycroft is as aware of that as any top driver will be. Looking pretty good so far, mind you, heading onto the hairpin and then onto that long back straight, which is also another thing we shall mention as the race progresses, because that allows and the layout allows for a wide variety of downforce options.
First driver to get a time in is Vascalampi, and he sets the marker with which Olsen can't meet. Let's see as we continue to watch Bycroft here. Still, they trickle in, and nobody's faster than Teemu quite yet. Closest we've gotten is Konieczny, more than half a second back. And there goes one, Juanmi Costa, about 2/10 quicker than the number 5.
Yeah, so Juanmi once again finding some pretty great pace as the season rolls along, really turning himself into a challenger here. Vaskilampi and Frichtenkade are also 6 milliseconds separated away from each other at this moment, but we still have some pretty fast guys over there on track, and he being one of them. He is now trundling across the line and 152.3, so he settled for 5th place so far. And look how tight it is in the qualifying. Like, we have a couple of pairs there separated by just 1 or 2 milliseconds.
And Vascalampi must have had a mistake on his second lap because he has exited out of qualifying, so he can't challenge Juanmi on his second time through. Frichtenkade seems to be the most likely, as you mentioned, very tight to Vascalampi, less than 100th of a second behind him. But he's got 2/10 to make up to Costa. This is Coriani coming through the last of the lap, getting ready to set his first time out through the long right-hander. Some call it Turkey, some call it the triple apexer, some call it by the corner number name. Do need to get some more corner names around here, by the way. But he comes up to the final corner now. Let's see what the 24 can put down.
Yeah, I mean, you got 20 corners and you haven't got a single corner name. Come on.
I've been dubbing them certain things, and it looks like Cristiano, unfortunately, not able to put a time in on that one. He must have had an off track. Let's head back to Costa because he's coming to finish his second lap. Let's see if he can stretch himself away from the rest of the field even further. As the Club Iberia driver hits the line. No. Ooh, it's a very slow one for him.
It is. Let's see what Frichtenkade can do. Bycroft as well, heading across the line, but Frichtenkade is someone who is just approaching it, and 152.1 to beat, and he doesn't quite beat it. 300ths of a second slower. Steve Bycroft doesn't improve either, so he stays surprisingly far back the field, actually. Is Bycroft currently in 7th place, so drivers are making their way across the line, but I don't think there's gonna be anyone really challenging the leaders anymore out there.
I don't see anybody who looks like they feasibly can do that. Marcus is coming across the line to set a time. Remember, Vascalampi had an off and exited out of his second lap, so even though he's out there now, this really won't count for anything, unfortunately. See Carl Villeneuve coming through. Now, typically upper mid-pack, it'd be a real shocker if he came around and was able to displace our pole sitter. In fact, I think Carl is still in the first half of the track, so I'm not sure he'll get back in time.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. He's in the SS, so he won't be making it back in time. That's 30 seconds to make what 4 kilometers, and I know this car is fast, but come on.
Coriani getting ready to set his first lap time. The Brazilian out of the final corner. What's he got? A 55.8, and that will place him into 24th.
Yes, Toni Tioli is through on the first half of the lap, but he won't make it as the seconds tick down. And as a result of that, I do believe that that's a first for Juan Costa, no?
That I can recall. He may have taken a pole before. It might be his first this season. But let's go through that starting order. Costa on the top spot, followed by Vascaloppi in second. You got Freakton Kata to the inside of row 2 with Severi in P4. Andy T starts 5th today. Going to be tough to follow up that win. Peter Koneski starts P6 and Steve Bycroft in 7th. Carl Villeneuve starts in 8th with Michael de Turk in 9th. And Etu Vaniokonga starts in 10th.
Paul Williams gonna be 11th, as is his number, with Vimal Anandharaman in 12th position. Daniel Banker 13th, Barry West 14th, Andrew Gould 15th, with Dennis Shanning, Lost Olsen, Pablo Suarez, Keith Turner, and Brett Wayne rounding out the top 20.
22nd goes to Mark Jones with Miguel Moreland in 23rd. Cristiano Coriani, we mentioned 24th for him, followed by Simpkins in 25th. Marcus Soyser in 26th will be followed by Thomas Dilmuth in P27. Last two to put a time in are Chris Hemmings and Nathan Finnegan. Then you've got Teolis, Maine, and Charles rounding out your 32-car field here today. A big field, but it is a long lap, as we mentioned. There's a lot of track to share, so hopefully we won't have too many issues, but this first corner can often cause wrecks. As wide as it is, drivers cannot see much coming around that sharp apex and a blind crest on the entry. Just waiting on Teolis and Charles to put themselves on the grid here for round 6 of the Classic Teams Championship. Everybody's out. The engines start to rev as the lights come up. Green flag is out. Costa is good off the line. Is that Andy T who failed to get off the line? Well, oh my goodness. He is falling back like a rock. Costa leads them down up into the first corner. They spread apart, some of them going 3 wide. Can they get through clean? So far, so good. A little bit of a wreck in the very back, but just front to back. Oh, and we got a car off up at the front. That is Bycroft.
Yeah, Steve Bycroft, terrible start for him as it was for Andy T. So both of those guys now well back the order, and that's a spinner as well in the mid-pack. Yeah, that's Vimal Anandharaman spinning around, but we'll get back to that later on as we are now focusing on how the field is making it through the first lap coming into the hairpin. And aside from a couple of incidents, so far so good. Nothing major going on, Joe.
Multiple separate incidents, interestingly. 2 cars spinning off there on the entry into the S's as they come to the backstretch for the first time. Ooh, 2 cars almost coming together. You can see going away off. That was Andy T and Paul Williams. Andy is hustling to try and get himself back up to the front as our leader Costa now breaks for turn 12, one of the more popular passing zones. He's nowhere to be seen close to anybody else. Vascaloppi following him. A challenge for third as Freakton Kata holds off Severi Seppa as they've got Koneski and de Turk challenging as well.
Yeah, so good start for those guys, not so good for Andy T, who had a bit of a contact with Paul Williams further back into the hairpin, and which we saw on screens, and they're still actually fighting with each other. You can see just the yellow car of Andy T now starting to rocket away from Williams and Villeneuve. So those guys in front of Eetu Vainio-Kangas as well. Andy certainly in a hurry to get back into that lead pack, which are now making their way away from Andy. So not the kind of result he would want or expect, certainly not the kind of start he would want. But one guy who's had a good start, Peter Konieczny, he finds himself in the top 5 after lap number 1.
And he's already challenging on Severi as the number 2 machine goes defensive into the first corner. Long way around, not working out for Peter. So he slots in behind, and there's few passing opportunities from here on to the other side of the course.
Yeah, indeed. So I think he has to wait until the hairpin here Michael de Turk behind him as well, and so bit of a pack forming between those guys. Flick and Carter really has to get a move on now because the leading duo are starting to get away. Of course, difficult to follow. Even with these cars, the dirty air isn't so bad, but it's still difficult to follow through the SS just because you have to trust on the other guy so much. And that's why the downforce levels I mentioned earlier are coming into play, where you can't really get an overtake through the SS even if you are faster with high downforce. And once that long back straight opens up, well, it's the great equalizer. Good luck getting past there if you're running a little bit more wing. So I think the winning strat here will be a high downforce qualifying setup and a low downforce race setup.
As that group doesn't get close to one another down into turn 12, everybody trying to spot their braking into that sharp hairpin. Poor Andy T, who's trying to catch up, is towing along the likes of Williams, Villeneuve, and Vani Okongas. So he's got to hope that they're willing to play nice so that he doesn't lose more time trying to get back up to this front group.
Yeah, indeed, and that's why Okongas now challenging for ninth place behind Carl Villeneuve, where he was closer just a couple of corners ago, made a bit of a mistake, and now dropped further back as we come into Istanbul for the second time in this race. I like that name. I like Istanbul. You know, at Coda, I think you have three kinds of corner names. You have the first turn, and then you have the second turn, and then you have the third turn, which covers the rest of them.
As they come across the finish line one more time and start to head up the main straight, it's like drivers are staying relatively close to one another, but it seems that that wake that you mentioned is making it tough to get close enough to be on the attack as you see them now head into those S's sections. It's like Paul Williams dropping further away from Andy T. Can he finally break that slipstream and focus on up ahead of himself? You could see Villeneuve and Vani Okongas staying a few car lengths apart. We're riding on board with Andy T now. He is faster than de Turk. It's about a second and a half between them, and last lap it was a little over 2 seconds between them.
Yeah, so Andy is starting to slowly but surely catch them up, and he's making a break away from Paul Williams and Carl Villeneuve as well, so that's very good news for Andy. And, you know, the pack ahead of him is so tight that he can still feasibly make it all the way to P number 3 with Prix and Kade, Severi Seppä, Peter Konieczny, Michael de Turk, and those guys, you know, in pretty close contact. And we know that Prix and Kade doesn't have the best of race paces necessarily, blindingly fast in qualifying, absolutely stupid fast sometimes in over a single lap, but in race condition can lose concentration a little bit with Seppä and Konieczny chasing him down. So that may allow opportunities for Andy T going on further into this event, which we will just have to wait and see about, I suppose.
Taking a glance a little bit farther up here towards the front of the pack, I'm also keeping an eye on Barry West, who's dealing with quite a challenge from Shaneen, as well as, don't forget, Steve Bycroft is out of order. He started much higher than where he is here in 14th, and he's in the midst of this pack. I'm curious to see if he can make short work of these drivers, because right now he looks a little bit stuck.
I mean, he does, and usually I've seen Steve Bycroft with a very well working low downforce setup. That's what I remember him for. You know, not necessarily the fastest driver on the track, but not the slowest either. A solid top 5, top 3 driver a couple of years back, and even up until last season. And, you know, Steve Bycroft is someone who should be able to make a short work of these guys, but we just don't know the kind of condition he is, how rusty he is as a driver, and, you know, how much of a difficult time is he having with this car and this track at this moment. So, not catching Shanning as fast as I was expecting, but still should have an opportunity heading onto the back straight as further ahead of them. Barry West was trying to make an overtake on Daniel Banker.
Yeah, couldn't quite pull it off. Now, don't forget, Bycroft is in the middle of this thing, and behind him, Gould has been taking peeks here and there as well. So he's got to keep an eye ahead and an eye behind. So we're only getting ready for lap 5 here.
Yeah, Eetu just passed Carl Villeneuve.
Oh, and that was a long time coming for that one. Down into turn 12. He had been setting it up for multiple laps now.
He has, and Eetu now, taking one position away, still needs to catch up to Paul Williams and then get into the back of Andy T, who in turn has found Michael de Turk for company. So I think we should actually move to sixth place with Michael and Andy having a bit of a tussle. And I'm gonna be honestly expecting Michael de Turk is doing an excellent job, by the way, so far. He's in a sixth place. That's the highest up the order I've ever seen this man in a Lotus 79 race, especially in the top split. But Andy T, well, I think they're still on a different level. Andy going into turn number one, going very late on the brakes, and just aggressive from Andy, wiggling the tail out a little bit, and making sure Michael doesn't come back there.
I thought for sure that we were about to see an accident, but unfortunately for Michael, the only business for the Turk is seventh place now. In fact, he's already being challenged by Paul Williams, and that car number 11 is looking hungry. He's been following Andy T forward, probably thinking he could snatch a few here and there if he can just stay within that slipstream as they come over the hill down through 10 and into 11. Let's see if he can get the launch onto the backstretch.
Yeah, that's going to be so crucial for Paul Williams now, needing to find a straight line speed on that car, Michael de Turk. He is within draft range, and de Turk shouldn't be getting too much out of Andy T's car either. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens here with Paul Williams trying to find, but ultimately nothing. So he has that car set up pretty much for corners as opposed to the straight line, and that means his best overtaking possibility is probably into the last corner.
Yeah, I think some people forget at times that final turn offers opportunities for passes if you're sneaky. We've certainly seen it here and there. We're not missing anything up front, by the way. We can stay here. I can tell you that Costa is about 3.5 seconds of Vascalampi, and Teemu is not looking like he's able to run down that number 8. Here we come up to that final corner, and that was a little wide for Williams. That is definitely a spot I wouldn't be surprised drivers rack up the off tracks.
Yeah, you got a couple of spots here. That's definitely one of them. Along the SS, you got a couple of places where you can definitely rack up the off tracks, and then on the back section after the back straight, you can find yourself an opportunity or two, just as Max Verstappen a couple of years back.
And Mycroft's got a good run here. This is on Barry West. He's to his inside. He's since overtaken Shaney. Oh no! And 2 cars around. That's Bycroft and Banker.
Yeah, that's Banker spinning around. Banker spinning around, and you're gonna see it here. Just maybe braking a little bit too late into turn number 1. So there was actually Bycroft looking for an overtake into turn 1, and ahead of him Banker just getting too anxious on the throttle and collected poor Steve Bycroft, who was absolutely a bystander there, ended up running over the front wing. Still able to keep going, mind you, is Steve Bycroft, but that front of the car, well, it doesn't look like it came out of Colin Chapman's drawing board.
It's the wrong place at the wrong time. Great avoidance, by the way, by Gould and Shanning, who split them. Now, Vascalampi might not be thinking ahead as Freakton Kate took a little look and actually had to lock up the brakes down into turn 12. That was closer than I anticipated. I just looked over in time, and Severi now thinks, oh, well, you two keep doing that, and I might have a chance to get up into P2.
Yeah, indeed. So Vascalampi surprisingly slow into turn number 12, and I think Freakton Kate was caught out by that, because Freak was really taking a much better racing line through there, much rounder of a line, was able to carry so much more speed and would have made the exit as well, but he was just caught out by Teemu being so sharp on the braking and, getting so slow into the apex that he had to lock up the brakes. And Severi is, I think you're right, I think Severi is now looking what these guys are doing, trying to see if he can find the opportunities there. I mean, Juanmi Costa, he has just checked out at this point of the race with almost a 5-second lead. So, this man is just on another level today. But then you got Vascalampi, then Kade and Seppa behind him with a real almighty scrap for a podium. And mind you, it is a game of musical chairs here at Coda, because you got 2 places in the podium in addition to Costa available, and you got 3 drivers trying to fight for them.
We don't need to go to it, but John Eddowes and Keith Herner came together in the penultimate turn. Unfortunately, both of them able to get going, but clearly unhappy with one another These three fighting for P2 come to the ever-critical backstretch. And behind them in 7th, the Turks' woes are not over because Paul Williams is getting very, very close. Can he get the launch? This is looking very good. He's got the slipstream, but just behind him, look at that red machine. Vanio Congas also in the mix. Staying defensive down to the inside. Michael de Turk drifts across the track now, coming to the racing line, opens the door for Paul Williams. He's going to try and step through. He's got to get the car woed up. Nearly gets into the side of Michael de Turk, but somehow they both keep their space.
And look at the Eetu behind him. Eetu is now finding opportunities, seeing that Paul can't get the overtake down. Paul doesn't have the straight line speed. That Williams is a little bit too slow on a straight line, and as a result of that, Eetu is trying to see if he can find his way past both Paul and Michael. But Paul Williams really needs to clear Michael de Turk yesterday, really. He needed to clear him last lap. He absolutely needs to clear him this time around, or else he might find himself in trouble with Eetu Vainio-Kangas behind him. I'm sure Paul has good pace, but he just doesn't have the straight line speed to make those overtakes work. Let's see if he can get something done into turn number 1.
It was a decent exit, but you're right, the top end of Paul Williams does not seem to be there. He takes another peek and just tries to scare de Turk off the racing line. Doesn't work, unfortunately, as they swing back down into the S's. This is where we should see Williams strong.
Yeah, but how do you overtake on the SS? That's the thing, and he's running so close. He's actually getting a little bit hindered by those guys, by the wake of Michael de Turk's car, and Eetu just following them through. And once again, we see Paul ahead, having to use a completely different line because he's able to carry so much more speed. Maybe into the hairpin, he can find a pass, but then on the back straight, he'll be a sitting duck anyway. Let's see if Paul goes for it. He does look to the inside, go for a late break, then returns to the middle lane, whereas Eetu is now able to get a great exit, even drifting around just a little bit, and see if he can now pounce.
Weaving across the track, immediately covering across the inside. De Turk not going to let Paul Williams have a shot at it, but Eetu Vainio-Kangas is going to try and have a shot at Williams. In fact, a successful one, it seems. If he can hold him off into the next right-hander, he does. He's got it. Vainio-Kangas into P8.
Yeah, that was a great move, well executed. Onto the end of the back straight, nothing special, just break a little bit later, and I think he measured that Paul wasn't gonna fight that too hard, because Paul still thinks his fight is with Michael de Turk ahead. So maybe Eetu can offer some assistance with his slightly better straight line speed, open up an opportunity for himself and for Paul Williams to get through Michael de Turk. And I must say, Michael de Turk, it might seem they're almost ragging on him with his lack of pace, but he's doing a great, solid defensive job so far.
And we've had a change of position. Konecki went wide through the penultimate turn. They're still side by side coming through turn 1. But I think T's got this done. He's been waiting a while on this one. A great advantageous move coming to the final corner. Went Peter, unfortunately, botched the apex of the previous one. Really gave him the opportunity he needed. That's 5th place for the number 3.
Andy T looking a little bit aggressive today. That's another one where he moved under braking, just a little bit drifting across, but that can easily lead to accidents. Thankfully, he was against Peter Konechny, a very experienced driver who knows better than to, take the millimeter marginal risks. So Konechny certainly perhaps saving T's hide a little bit. I mean, it was a good move for Andy to pounce onto the opportunity, but I don't like to see drivers moving under braking.
Next on his list is going to be Severi, who's about 3 seconds up the road, but that'll be a very long haul for him, considering their pace looks relatively similar. In fact, his one saving grace might be that the 2nd through 3rd could still get in a battle. They haven't separated much, but we haven't seen them attacking lately.
Yeah, and I don't think Fake has quite the straight line speed to challenge Teemu Vaskilampi, unless Teemu makes a mistake, which in fairness is quite likely. So, might be an opportunity there. And I'm not being mean to Teemu, but he's had a history of being a little bit kind of like Alex Milward, the Finnish version of Alex Milward, where he is known to run a little bit hot and cold. Frick and Kade, however, going wide on the penultimate corner. Severi Seppa, however, unable to quite follow him through on that one. So those guys are in a little bit of a trench warfare at this moment.
Brett Wayand looked like he's going to get something on Laust Olsen as it switches back into Turkey, and he's got it done. Olsen, who started this race in 17th, is up 2 spots. He was up 3. He was in 14th, and that unfortunately has slipped away from him. Let's take a look at how that pass happened, because this was in the stadium section. Not unheard of. Oh, look at that.
That's clever. That's very clever. And round the outside with the damaged front wing onto the next one, and 10 side by side getting a good run, and that should be an easy sneak pass down the inside. Well done by Brett Wayne.
That nets him 14th after starting in 20th, so doing an even better job than Laust Olsen climbing his way forward. Oh, and we've had a wreck. Oh, this is Seufzer. And Steve Bycroft again into the first corner.
No! Poor Steve Bycroft. I mean, he seemed to be fine. He's finding all the trouble out there today. Let's see what happened to him. Once again, this is Seufzer, and just Bycroft hitting him under braking, really. Seufzer, I think, made a little bit of a mistake, braking a little bit too early maybe, and Bycroft couldn't quite anticipate that. So I don't know if it's a mistake or Bycroft just unable to anticipate, but either or. You know, Bycroft being a gentleman, waiting out for him, and he's gonna try his luck on next couple of corners. But that's what happens when you get a fast driver in the back end of the pack. It's so hard to anticipate where a driver who was 2 or 3 seconds slower than you over a lap is gonna be braking. And I'm not blaming the slower drivers for that. It's just very hard for a fast driver to imagine somebody braking that early because you're not even thinking about it.
Exactly. So at least Steve was trying to be sportsmanlike in all of this. A little bit ahead of them at the end of the back stretch. That's Edos with Suarez trying to get through. Suarez way out of position here compared to what we're used to seeing for Pablo. And they're going to stay side by side into the stadium section. If he can hold on. Oh, nope. He thought he could, but then fully ahead of him, John Edos claimed P19.
That he did. Pablo Suarez not having the best of races so far, being involved in an early incident, having some damage to the rear wing of his car. Visit Spain, it reads on the rear wing, and I'm sure Keith Turner behind will be taking that advice to heart. It would be quite nice to visit Spain right now, actually. Well, not right now, perhaps, but, you know, after all this mess clears over, because it's 2 degrees Celsius and overcast and cloudy and miserable. Guitars, maybe a couple of drinks, nice sunrise. Yes, please.
Well, you know what they say about the rain in Spain. So, meanwhile, as we check in on our leader, 7.3 seconds ahead of Vascalapi. Really not looking phased by anybody ever since the start of the race. He's just been running his own little pace here. He does have a little bit of lap traffic. It seems he's coming upon. That is Jonathan Main, who's just going to get out of his way. But until the next one, it's a long ways to the next bit of traffic. And we did say that it takes a while to get around here. So he's not, it doesn't look like he's going to have that causing him too many issues, at least for the time being. Second place has been where much of our action has taken place, at the sharp end of the field. But Vascalapi has been doing a great job about keeping Freak Tenkate at arm's length.
He is, and so far so good for Teemu. Really difficult technical course, but he's handling it quite well. And, you know, it's the peculiar thing about Teemu is that he is slightly mistake prone over the course of these long events, but he'll find his way always there. And it seems that the more difficult the circuit, the better Teemu Vaskilampi will do. So it's quite an unusual thing about him, where it's almost as if he doesn't find the normal circuits challenging enough. But once we come to Coda, he is in a second place, doing a very good race for himself, not able to match Juan Costa by any means, but doing a great job of keeping Freak Tenkate and Severi Seppa behind him. So that's well done for Teemu, and consistent lap times as well, as they are about to lap Jonathan Main, who is in 28 and 1 lap down.
That looks like he's just going to dutifully stay out of the way for them. I'm also kind of watching Vainio Congas, who's approaching the back of the Turk behind them. You can see them just coming to the hairpin there in the background. And they're onto the back stretch here. Let's see what kind of straight line speed the Turk has compared to Etu before it was Williams giving it a shot. But now the Finn is pulling the slipstream. Does he have the better top end? Yes, he does. Here he comes. Looks to the outside, though. Gonna go the long way around. He's strong on the brakes as De Turk tries to cover him off, and he does so successfully. But now he's got to be thinking twice, and he's thinking twice. Does A2 Vanio Congas as he goes for a surprise move down into the stadium section. Long way around worked for another driver. Wayand made this stick. Can we get the Finn going all the way around? No.
Not quite able to pull it off, but really surprising the Turk there, and I'm sure he made Michael think twice, because previously he was really only worried about the main straight, the back straight, in terms of covering off the attacks from Eetu and Paul, but now he has to think elsewhere too. Eetu made himself unpredictable, and learning those lessons he's been taught in this series and really trying to apply the pressure on Michael de Turk, and can't help but think this is going to be a short affair, although I'm not trying to sell de Turk short, but here comes to the inside. Wow.
He's being the joker in the pack, and it seems that Michael de Turk is able to fend him off yet again. Credit to Michael in all this. I would have thought that he'd have to give up that spot by now, but he's defending well despite aggressive moves from the number 6 behind him. Williams, remember we mentioned he could try and take advantage of these two and get both spots if they start to fight. Here is Jonathan Main yet again through the S's. It's very difficult to stay out of the way. He is going to cause a little bit of a headache for Williams, unfortunately. We come back to the backstretch, and this is where it kicked off just a lap ago, coming off of this corner. Did Vanio Congas learn anything from last time?
Well, he is closer, and that's also the Turk going for a glorious power slide on the exit. Unfortunately, not the fastest way, and I think this time it's a slam dunk. The Turk is going to cover off the inside, Eetu going to the outside, and he is so much stronger on the brakes that he should be able to pull this off, even with the Turk trying to squeeze him a little bit. The Turk actually launching it to the inside, Eetu going for a crossover, but the Turk finding all these ways to defend.
And we've had a wreck between, I think, Vascalampi and Freak Tenkate. I'm not sure. I suddenly saw them coming down the order.
So that's at the end of the back straight, and that's just Freak Tenkate going very wide, and Vascalampi, I think, had a bit of a... I don't know why Vascalampi ran wide. I think there might have been a ghost contact between Freak Tenkate and Teemu Vascalampi.
I don't think there was ghost contact. I think it was Vascalampi saw him coming, and just maybe wasn't sure where he was, gave him plenty of space, thinking he was inside, and well, he wasn't. And in all of that, that was Severi who gets into second place.
And look at behind them. That's teammates. That's Teemu Vascalampi and Andy T now third and fourth. They're gonna, have a bit of a fight among themselves. Teemu with that black rear wing or gray rear wing, and Andy with that white rear wing. That's how you tell them apart.
Vanio Congas finally made it stick into turn 1 past Michael de Turk. We got so many drivers with action happening out here. I'm slipping the tongue. And this happened into the first corner. De Turk could not hold him back forever. Let's take a look at this replay.
Yeah, let's see what Eetu is able to do here, going along the main straight. So he is not so close, but he is still within attack range. Is he going to go to the inside, launch it very deep? Yes, he is. Going to the inside, going the Andy T route, and that's sneaky, Eetu. That's a little bit feisty. That's a slide job.
Yeah, he parked it on the apex, and De Turk, who definitely looked like he saw it coming, was going for the over-under. Couldn't get it back. Meanwhile, Paul Williams, he sees weakness in Michael de Turk. He says, I want a piece of that. He's going to brake very late. Can he actually make the apex here? He does. Paul Williams now up to P8.
The advantage of high downforce right there, and then you may not be able to get the overtake down on straight line, but you can sure brake later than the guy in front of you, and that's what saved Paul Williams' hide. So he can still actually continue chasing and holding on to the back of Eetu, hoping that Eetu will potentially take him to greener pastures over the course of this event. Eetu now 7th place, Paul 8th, and Michael de Turk, poor Michael de Turk, has been relegated to 9th as we are moving back to the battle for 2nd, or 3rd rather.
It's Mr. T trying to challenge Vascalampi for 3rd position. Impressive. How far down was he? What, about 7th or 8th place at the first lap? And now he's looking at a podium. Yeah,
I mean, in fairness, only place he can look to is the mirror on that start. He cocked it up all by himself, but yeah, still MDT making a great recovery drive so far, being able to keep his car on the straight and narrow, making some daring overtakes, and now right on the edge of the podium here, chasing down his teammate Teemu Vaskilampi, now for the final spot on the steps of glory, whereas Severi Seppä is slowly but surely starting to run away from them a little bit. So Severi might just be able to find a second place here, not counting our chickens before they hatch, but looking good for Severi so far.
I think T does want to look in the mirrors, but he wants to look in his side mirrors at everyone behind him. Vaskilampi, though, not going to let that happen easily. He stretches away with great straight line speed down into turn 12. And behind them, Freakton Kate, remember, he's got pace as well. He qualified extremely well in third position. I don't think he's going to settle for being at the back of this group.
Not at all. Mind you, race pace not necessarily excellent, but still holding on to them, and not too many mistakes. We saw that one where he braked a little bit too late at the end of the back straight. I think he learned from that one. But if Andy and Teemu start fighting, then he has an outside chance looking in for another podium. Wouldn't that sit well with Frick and Kade going a little bit too far down the inside onto the penultimate corner, then to the last corner, looking for a good line, and he is. So those guys gonna keep their scrap going on, as way further back we have some fights.
But we did. It seems that Olsen used traffic very well to separate himself from Daniel Banker, who is much closer. That was Jonathan Main they had to try and get through. And and we've got something with none other than Bycroft still trying to make up positions. Was that Keith Herner he just overtook?
Yeah. So very well done from Steve Bycroft to actually still keep going, because I think a lot of drivers would have given up the ghost by now, really, after the atrocious race Steve Bycroft has had. 17 qualifying. Not the best of efforts, but still something to work out from. And then in the race, it seems like, you know, wherever there's trouble, Steve Bycroft has somehow found it. He'd make for a great detective. Detective Bycroft. In the Sunday Grand Prix series. That would make a great series.
Except he's caused some of the trouble, unfortunately. So as he closes in on Edos. Now, he was trying to make a pass on him before, if I recall, as he takes a look to the inside, thinks twice about it this time. Obviously, some caution has been instilled in that number one machine after his woes into the first corner earlier in this race.
Yeah, having to be a little bit more measured in his approach, knowing that John Edos might not have the braking spots as finely tuned down as he does. You know, might be braking a little bit early, and trying to gather some information too on, you know, where are his strengths, where are his weaknesses, where can I actually get past them. Usually when you're a fast driver going from back to front, you can't really afford yourself to have a closer look. You just launch it up to the inside on the first opportunity you get and hope you make it stick. But this time, Bycroft realizing the situation that, you know, ahead of him it's a long gap, so he might have to wait this one out onto the back straight, going to the outside, as Edos tries to fend him off on the inside, and Edos a little bit slower on a straight line. As a result of that, Steve Bycroft able to get the pass done, and I don't think Sean has anything on him. Oh, I say that, but Sean actually fighting back.
Still has a nose to the inside. Is Bycroft going to complete it here in turn 13? Maybe, not quite. Still side by side. Even with that mangled front wing, he is holding his own quite well. Bycroft should be very disadvantaged. And, well, credit to John Edos. He's still trying to hold him off. And now, I don't think you can hold the outside of Turkey, or can you? Can you? John Edos can. Oh, my goodness. They almost make side-to-side contact. John Edos says, "You shall not pass."
Wow. That was an excellent defense from John Edos. I did not see that coming in a million years. And the way he did it, completely squeaky clean. I mean, he left Bycroft all the room Steve needed. He gave him the space. He said, okay, you can have that part of the racetrack. I'll have this part of the racetrack. We'll just settle this down on pace. We each other have our room. Then finally, onto the penultimate corner, squeezing him off just a little bit, overlapping the wheels, not touching them, and John Edos holding on to that position. That was a great work. great work by a driver who's a relative unknown quantity to us, but he sure had his name well embroiled into my mind.
My goodness, I didn't think it was possible to defend from the outside there, but that mistake that we just saw might have to give it up. It seemed like Bycroft had the measure of him down the back straight last time, but that was with a little bit of a slipstream and a side-by-side fight and some wheel spin. That's going to change the complexion completely as they drag race towards turn 12. Bycroft does indeed have better straight line speed. Look at this. Trying to squeeze him in. Edos pushes him further to the inside. Bycroft down to the apex. Oh, he's on the opposite side this time. Last one didn't work on the right side of the car ahead, and he's going to give that one up.
Yeah, trying for a crossover maybe here, looking to the outside a little bit, forcing John Edos to defend. So great job by Bycroft recognizing the situation, realizing this might be a stronger fight, and you know, we talked about the straight line speed. I'm not sure Steve Bycroft actually has a faster car on a straight line, because I saw Edos where he was losing time every time he switched up the gears. He went from second to third, the car bogged down a little bit. Third to fourth, the car bogged down. Fourth to fifth, the car bogged down. It was always like yank, yank, and every time Bycroft was able to pull a little bit more ahead. But when they were actually side by side, like drag racing on top gear, there was absolutely no difference. In fact, Edos was a little bit faster, but that won't do him no good if Bycroft gets passed on the inside here.
He's been trying for so long, and it's a drag race, but this time not in a straight line down towards the S's. Maybe it's a game of chicken instead, and Bycroft's going to win that one as he finally gets himself into 20th. Not the spot I think he wanted us to be calling right now.
Not at all, but he had to work out for it, and credit to John Edos. He really made it a fair, clean, great battle. And I think Steve, you know, despite the position, I think he enjoyed that one. He's the kind of guy who is not too egotistical about positions. He doesn't hold himself above anyone. He's a very fair racer, and that was a great battle between two drivers who know how to handle a race car and how to handle opposition without resorting to the dirty tricks.
And we've got the Renault teammates still close to one another, trying to settle P3. They've been watching Seppa ahead of them as he holds on to P2, but he's not been able to get away from them. So how much is these two working together, and how much is it them not able to really do anything with what they've got? Just an update, we don't need to go there. Carl Villeneuve had a small spin, self-spin actually, into turn one. He doesn't lose a position if he gets it going once again.
Yeah, so Andy T, I just don't think Andy has the answers on a straight line. He has the answers in the corners. He can hold on to the back of Teemu, but once we come to the straight and he even makes a mistake at the hairpin, they're sliding a little bit from the inside curve, and Andy T, just look at him on a straight line. He's losing hand over fist. He's absolutely drop dead on a straight line, and that's just not a good look for Andy T, who would want ideally to make overtakes here, but it's gonna prove very difficult unless Teemu makes a mistake on the brake.
Yeah, I think that's on definitely, like you mentioned, the wheel spin that he got out of the corner scuppered any opportunity he may have thought about. Now he's got to remake some of that ground up. So Severi leading the way as they get ready to come to the final laps, actually. We're down to 10 to go and make that 9 to go right now as Costa just crosses the line.
Yeah, Juanmi Costa last time around, looking at those lap times, 154.4, okay, he had some traffic there, so that explains it. The previous lap, 153 flat. That's the pace of Juanmi Costa right now. Now, for the sake of comparison, Severi Seppä, 153.7, Vaskilampi in a draft, 53.5, Andy T, 54 flat, Friikten Kade, 53.4. So Juanmi Costa right now almost half a second faster than anyone else out there. Just look at that lap comparison.
Just unbelievable. Juanmi looks like he's got this one in the palm of his hand and is just nursing it to where he needs to take the victory as he comes around turn 11 and on to the back straight. I mean, just look, there's nobody around him. Just a little bit of lap traffic you can see ahead and a little bit of lap traffic you can see behind. There is no one from the rest of the top five within viewing distance of this man.
Yeah, I'm actually curious about the straight line speed of Juan Costa as well. He topped out at 259 km an hour at the end of the back straight, comparing that to Severi Seppa, who is still on the back straight, doing 257. So Severi Seppa a little bit slower on a straight line, but not necessarily something that makes a huge difference. Still, Costa finding a good balance between cornering speed and a straight line speed.
Check in on them. The number 2 NP2, Vascalopi behind him, holding down third, and actually starting to fall off a little bit. He's made up the gap that he lost from his mistake a couple laps ago. Now, how eager is he to try and get on top of his teammate as they come down through the penultimate turn? He's actually looking very strong at this point, taking a lot of the outside, potentially gaining himself a little bit of an off track. But at this point, I'm not sure how much he cares. He just wants to get onto that podium. He gets himself a decent launch. This doesn't look like striking distance to me, though.
No, it isn't. Not even with Andy T. He knows that he can't make those. Oh, but Teemu locks it up on the braking. So does Andy in avoiding action. And both of them making tiny mistake, dropping a little bit further back from Severi Seppa. So mind you, these guys are also in the fight for the team championship with Renault and Ferrari now 1 and 2. Ferrari leading the team championship, Renault in the second place. And that's a Ferrari in the second place now in this race with Renault's third and fourth. So, you know, and another Ferrari in seventh place. So all these points are vital. They don't want to lose the team championship to Ferrari, and they don't want to let Severi Seppa run away with it. But do they have anything to stop him with? That's the question.
Right now, it hasn't looked like they do. But that's with Vascalopi leading the pair. Would it be different potentially with Andy T? And he just came on the radio. Didn't quite catch what he was talking about. Some communication going on between second, third, and fourth.
I think it was basically Andy going, well, I didn't quite catch it, but from the language of the driving, it looks like Andy is agreeing to back off from Teemu for now and allowing Teemu to stay to the back of Severi Seppa and try and challenge him instead, you know, making a temporary truce. And that's the smart thing to do right now. No point wasting time fighting each other when you can gain time on the guy ahead, fight for the second place instead of the third place. They still have time. And gap to Severi isn't big. It's a little bit over 1 second, but Teemu needs to keep it going strong. He needs to attack, and he needs to attack now. He needs to find that space, put the pressure on Severi, and, you know, not allow him to use that optimal racing line and use that pace to his advantage. When he has him defensive, he has him in his pocket. That's already winning half the fight.
Sounds like two very smart drivers there, seeing if they could gang up on that Ferrari.
I don't know about that.
That's between you and Teemu to talk about. I'm not going to pick that fight.
And Andy.
So Andy T, who stays in behind Vascalopi. Oh, did he just cut the course there in the S's though?
Very close, very close. I think he went 4 wheels over the white line, but I don't think he had a slowdown penalty from that one. Here we see it, and oh, that's Andy T. Yeah, Andy T going even further wide actually than Teemu Vascalopi. So both of them right on the edge there. And Andy T has indeed fallen into the claws of Prix Tenkade. So 10 Cats is probably adding another name to his resume, another feather to his hat. The cat with a hat. A pat on the back.
All right, Dr. Seuss. So as Andy T sees a little bit of traffic in front of him, Marcus Seusser is unfortunately causing a headache for Vascalopi as he has to overtake him. Now, Andy T is looking ahead, looking behind, eyes everywhere. Has to make sure that Prix Tenkade doesn't have an opportunity to try and pounce. Going to come to 6 laps to go here very shortly. Around the inside, and they're both going to get around Marcus. Not without a little bit of a scare, though.
Yeah, that's always scary when you have the guy onto your inside and you try to make it around the outside in a sweeping long corner such as that one is. And then, you know, just hoping that he sticks to the apex. And of course, Prix Tenkade in a fight for a position, a very high position. Was hoping that Marcus would have made it a little bit easier, but Marcus, in fairness, has his own race to worry about too, so can't be too nice as Andy makes a mistake into turn number 1, and that's Freak.
They're side by side. Inside going to be going to Andy for the first part, and that's enough for him to get clear of Freak. So he settles back into 5th once again. But he had to think about it. Freak Tenkate, remember, he used to be a little bit farther up than this. I'm sure he would like to get that position back.
I'm sure too. Great qualifying driver. Has made a lot of mistakes in racing conditions, as he has mentioned. We talked about with him and concentration being a bit of an issue in racing conditions, as is the case with many drivers, mind you. It's not just a Freak Tenkate thing. It's a thing with many drivers, you know, lapsing in concentration during the race. But I'm sure he is trying not to lapse in concentration right now, being in his points-paying battle with Andy T. Losing time on the SS, however, after his failed attempt. I think he went a little bit too hot in there, and as a result of that, not quite able to attack Andy at the end of the back straight. But yeah, I don't think the Renaults have to worry about team orders anymore. I think Andy is suitably far back, that unless Teemu makes a mistake, then it's going to be 2 separate battles in top 5.
Yeah, unfortunately for Andy T, he now really does have to look in the mirrors. Oh, and Williams and Turk are off track in turn 12. Whoa, I think Turk either missed his braking point or something locked up on the car. Absolutely destroys Williams into this corner.
Oh yeah, he was way too late into the brakes, and then he locked up the rear axle, trying desperately to brake. You know, it looked worse than it was, but you can see it here. The way the car snaps. Look at the end of the braking zone. The way the car snaps around right here. Trying desperately to avoid him, unable to do so. In hindsight, the clever move would have been to turn to the right and just, you know, avoid him from the right. But I think Turk was trying to, you know, just turn it into the corner desperately, trying to avoid contact, getting a little bit, you know, hectic there, and Paul Williams, as a result of that, the losing party, having to come into the pit lane. A shame. He had such a great race going.
Yeah, that really is upsetting to see, because they were doing so good. Oh, and is that Vascalopi off? Vascalopi's going to lose 2 spots as both Tenkate and Andy T slip into 3rd and 4th.
So here we see the replay of that one, and it's gonna happen in the SS. Is it gonna be a typical Teemu Vascalopi mistake? Maybe going a little bit, oh yeah, a little bit too anxious. Just, I don't know, the car kept turning. He didn't want to keep turning, but the car kept turning, losing the grip. And quick on board with him as well. And look at the steering wheel here. He's gonna turn the corner, cutting the curb, and just losing traction inside tires, and just gonna keep turning, having to lock up the brakes in order to avoid the wall, and as a result of that, going from the podium all the way down to 5th place.
He probably doesn't like seeing his teammates, unfortunately, being the one that he has to demote, but I'm sure he'll take a 3rd place if he can hold on to it. Freak Tenkate now has the bit between his teeth. He's got the carrot on the stick in front of him. Can he grab it, though? He certainly will be wanting this podium for himself as he slides a little wide coming through the penultimate turn. The laps are ticking away, and another slide from Freak.
Those rear tires are screaming white hot right now for Freak Tenkate. The sun is coming out too. That won't help his matters with the rear traction, with the temperature getting hotter and hotter. So Andy T now able to get away with it just a little bit. It's not over yet by any means, but Freak now has to work his way back onto the back of Andy T, and also worry about Teemu behind, who is still not too far away. Teemu, mind you, only about 1.5 seconds away from Freak Tenkate. So, you know, it's still pretty much a 3-way fight on the dying laps of this race. And Teemu right now looking ahead, hoping, finding something dropping into his lap.
Yeah, it is about 80 degrees Fahrenheit currently on the track surface. And I think we had a problem with Banker. Where is this? Let's take a look. I think this was in Turkey, and I think it was the self-spin as the rear of the car did not like the same grip as the front held.
Yeah, and damage already on the front of that car, so Daniel Banker's race already being a little bit hamstrung by that one, but I'm sure he'll just try to make it over the line. Still in 14th place, mind you. So even if he finishes on the lead lap, finishes in the top 15, that's still great points haul for him, for the driver rated 21st in this field. Mind you, mentioning of drivers with low I rating in high positions, well, Juan Costa, number 8, leading this race. But aside from him, how about Mr. Gold, Andrew Gold in 9th place, rated 19th in this field, usually a split number 2 driver, but here on the top 10.
Everything he touches is gold, and he certainly is looking to gain some good points today. He's got 6 seconds, 7 seconds up to Villeneuve with 6.5 back to Shaning. So he's really not under any threat, and he could just bring this one home. Meanwhile, a driver who's seen a lot of action today, Peter Konietzki, has Vanio Congas on his tail. This is our closest fight among our front runners.
That it indeed is. Eetu now has chased him down, and he has 4 laps to do it. 3 laps to do it, pardon me. 28 laps in this event, looking for the back straight potentially. Peter has done a great race for himself. He's stuck within the edges of top 5, currently sitting 6th. But is he gonna lose one more? The bright side for him is that they don't really have any threats behind them. Carl Villeneuve being 14 seconds away, but still he would like that 6th place, would like to keep these young whippersnappers away from his heels. But can he actually do it? That's a completely different question. Eetu has been strong today. Not on his best form, mind you, but still has been strong. And we know the level he operates in. He's a consistent top 10 driver.
Oh, the Illinois driver is weaving back and forth. He feels very much under threat. Covers the inside from Eetu. Eetu maybe thinking about an over-under. Not quite. Can't get the grip compared to the number 9. He'll stay in behind, but look at how close behind he can pull up, as it's at times just a car length between himself and Peter.
Yeah, and really trying to work him into a mistake here, but Peter isn't the kind of guy who cracks easily in high pressure situations. He has the experience to know how to hold the guy back for a couple of corners more. Maybe has the experience to hold the guy, force the guy into a mistake as well. You know, try and sell Eetu a bit of a dummy in a defensive work instead. Just as I was saying, Peter spins around on the last corner. I'm truly sorry, that's on me.
He had plenty of space before Carl Villeneuve, so he's only going to lose the 1 position, but he buckled under the pressure. And we're very close to the end of this race at this point. 1.5 laps left to go. Juan Costa 15.9 seconds ahead of Severi in that number 2 machine. That was a lapped car that you saw him going by. That was just Keith Herner that he was overtaking. Up ahead of him, one more in the form of Mark Jones. Now, the one nice thing, I guess you could say, with all this paved runoff that they have out there, despite numerous incidents that we've seen today, we still have 25 runners of our 31 starters. We unfortunately did not start with Charles, I believe.
Of all the causes you could pick, or all the justifications you could pick to defend tarmac runoffs, is that the one you're going with? Do we lock in the answer?
I mean, I can't say I'm all that happy about it, but it's the drivers probably are.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, yeah, and it does allow you to keep going more easily when the walls are a little bit further away, when you know that you can make a mistake, but still not, you know, find yourself in a wall, find yourself with terminal damage, limping back to the pit lane. So that's a good thing, and it's great to see these guys, you know, able to run such a high-level race despite a couple of the big names missing. We know Oskari Rinne is busy with other obligations with his team, and Tamas Shimon not coming here to Coda either. So it's a chance for these guys to shine, and Juan Costa, who is in pictures right now, about to lap Mark Jones, has really been the shining star of this field.
Up and through the S's, climbing the hill to the highest part of the circuit here. Through turn 9, over the crest, and then back down once again. He actually continues to pull away from those behind him. His pace is just incredible from what we've witnessed today. So Juan Costa who might not be in it for the championship, is putting his foot down here today. He's showing that he is one to watch out for, can throw some problems in for our front runners if he keeps showing up and stealing wins away from them, from keeping them from taking those valuable points. As he weaves his way through the stadium section for the final time. I'm keeping half an eye on that battle for third, but it's separated so far, it really doesn't look like, unless one of them has a major mistake, we'll see a swap around between second, third, and fourth. Down through Turkey. Costa is going to be loving this one. Even though he didn't have anybody to race, he certainly showed everybody what he can do. Up and a little bit of a slide there. He's not out of the woods. He has a lot of a buffer, but he's got to bring it to the end. Maybe he's just having fun as he slides it through the final corner. Juanmi Costa wins today at Circuit of the Americas.
That he does an excellent performance from Juanmi Costa. Hats off. In second place, Severi Seppi was a little bit hampered by some lap traffic on the last lap, so allowed Andy T to get quite close, but close is not good enough for Andy. He's gonna have to settle for third place. Severi Seppi gonna finish second and doing a great favor for his championship as well. Lichtenkarde managing to hold off Teemu Vaskilampi on the last lap, who ended up in fifth place, Eetu sixth, and Peter seventh.
Only 16 cars left on the lead lap. Unfortunately, a lot of them have spread apart. Really, the only thing that's semi-close is between Weyand and Olsen. They picked up the battle late in the race, and Weyand came out on top, at least so far. He's still got to make a few more corners, granted, as he holds about 2.3 seconds over Laust Olsen. You can see them coming across, Konieczny, Villeneuve, Gould. How about Andrew? You were talking about him earlier. Going to gain a lot of iRating with that finish today.
All that precious iRating. And I remember the times when I had something like 2000 or 2500 when you could actually gain some iRating from finishing well, as opposed to, getting the dreaded minus 150 when you make a simple driving error.
That's going to be the last of our cars slipping across the line. So we're going to go to, no, we are not going to break, excuse me. We've got the results here for today, excuse me. So we have Juanmi Costa taking the victory with Severi Seppi in second place. Andy T finished P3 in spite of himself and many woes. He clawed his way back with Freakton Kate finishing in fourth. Teemu Vaskilampi in fifth after a late race mistake was costly for him. Vanio Congas sixth back there with Peter Konieczny losing out to him from another late race spin, seventh. And then you've got Carl Villeneuve, P8, Andrew Gould in ninth, and Dennis Shaning in 10th.
You got Barry West finishing 11th ahead of Brett Weyand in 12th. Laust Olsen 13th, Daniel Banker 14th. Steve Bycroft, what a terrible race he had in terms of fortunes, gonna end up 15th ahead of Cristiano Corraini, who is the last driver on the lead lap, in 16th. Keith Turner gonna be 17th with John Eddowes after that great fight with Steve, and ending up 18th. Tony Tiolis 19th, and Robert Simpkins 20th position.
From there on down, it was drivers that had major problems today in the back end of our field. But up towards the front end, we have our third place finisher, Andy T, who I'm sure has plenty to tell us about with all the adventures that he went through. Andy, it didn't look good at the very, very start. What happened with the green flag there?
I think I nudged my clutch potentiometer on my wheel and didn't notice, because I tested it at the end of Q when I abandoned the lap. And then I released my second clutch, and the car just said, "No, we're not going anywhere."
Oh, goodness. And that had to have just been mortifying. Even still, full credit to you. You made good of the situation and somehow got up to third. I mean, tell us how you did that.
Lap one sends. There were some horrible sends. Sorry to anyone who I launched the car at, but you can't pass easily here. And I've no idea what the guys in front were running wing-wise. So do I gamble that I'm going to have to sit behind them the entire race? No. Full send.
Well, that worked out well. Then you came up to your teammate. Did we hear correctly on the radio? Did you two attempt to maybe try and work together to see if you can get up to Severi?
So I asked Severi to drop Teemu so I could get past him.
Oh, so that's what was going on. We heard a little bit of chatter, but we couldn't quite make it out. Well, I mean, congratulations on a third. All things considered, I'd say that is a fantastic result, sir.
I'm quite pleased, but don't screw your qualifying up. That's not the way to go. And then don't accidentally do an awful start. That's also not the way to go. I think if I hadn't done that, my pace at the end showed I could have been better than third. But them's the breaks, and here we are.
Yep. Well, that was Andy T, third place in spite of himself, it seems, today. So we're going to talk to a driver who finished behind him, Teemu Vaskalampi. Unfortunately, Ozzy's going to be hopefully discussing a little bit about that mistake later on.
Yeah, so Teemu Vaskilampi, second place for a long time in this race. You really had a podium in the bag, and then you lost the bag and the cat in it. So what happened?
Well, this was first full race stint I did for the week, so I had no idea how the car works, and no, it didn't work after halfway. It's just horrible to drive, and the mistake I did when Prix was behind me, it was cloudy weather came, and suddenly I couldn't see my brake markers. I basically braked too early. I missed the brake marker for the earlier mark, and same happened later also once in turn one. Cloudy weather and no experience from the track, it was very tricky for me. And I was like last 8 laps, I was at 16x, and car was undrivable like last 10 laps, so it was not great.
Okay, so with Coda behind you, and I'm sure many happy memories from there still ringing in your ears, how glad are you to go back to Spa next week?
Oh yeah, it's much better. Well, off tracks aren't much better, but the track is. At first, I didn't hate this track. At least like first half, there's some quite interesting parts, but yeah, not fun. But Spa is one of the best tracks for sure.
Okay, well, Teemu, anyway, congratulations for top 5. A great points haul for you with many of the top drivers missing. I'm sure you'll be happier driver next week.
Maybe.
Thank you, Teemu.
Don't hold your breath.
Okay, thank you, Teemu. Always a pleasure speaking to you. And Joe, I believe you have some words for us.
Yes, on that note of bright ray of sunshine, we're going to give a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. But also, a thank you goes out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts. We've listed them here on your screen. Also to June Lalonde, there's her contact there if you want to try and check out some of her great work. Thanks to Ozzy, Sean, and Dougie, our team today. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Our social media includes Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. Link in the description below, where while you're down there, might as well subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss a moment, including the next race, which is going to be Spa. That'll be Sunday, November 1st at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. If you stick around, well, sort of, if you head over to the iRacing channel, we've got the IMSA Triple Crown Challenge coming up in just a few moments at Laguna Seca, 4 p.m. Eastern when that kicks off. Until next time, race clean, race hard, see you on the track.